Hey everybody, welcome to Prime Performance. Just kind of wanted to give you guys a quick little sample or run through of what it's like a day in our pitching program. So the first thing is, once you guys walk in, we're going to head right over to our prep section, and you're going to get a little bit of a pre-warm up as to what we saw in your assessment. So for a lot of kids, that involves some breathing work, some foam rolling, our activation series, really just a bit of a prep to our prep. But it's really our way of sort of prepping the body to do what we want it to do before we even get into a dynamic warm-up. And what it allows our athletes to do is perform the way they want to perform, even if they have maybe some movement restrictions or some movement qualities that aren't where they need to be. So once we finish up with that, we'll head up to our next phase. So once we're done with our breathing work and our activation series, we'll head to our rev section, or our actual dynamic warm-up. And what that'll consist of is some skipping, some cutting, some light running, just to kind of get the blood pressure up, get the tissues warm, and it really serves as a full body warm-up to get guys ready to go. And what it allows us to also do is work in some more sport-specific activities, right? So we can get baseball players who have to learn how to split and cut. We can work that into our warm-up and kind of allow them to work on some sports skills in our warm-up, so it's not just a total eye wash. From then, we'll head over to our ignite session, where we get some explosive med ball work in. I find it great for a lot of our guys to get some med ball work in, to be explosive before we even throw. It's also a great opportunity for me specifically to get a lot of lower half patterning in without even having to worry about making a throw. We can get some of the movements we want to get done over here, taking out the fear of failure when it comes to throwing a baseball, and really just teach guys to be explosive and to move fast. So once we're done with our warm-up and our explosive series, we'll head over to our little throwing side of the section here. Now we're going to start working on getting the actual arm prepared to throw. That can consist of some shoulder tube activities, some band work, the slide board, we've got some wrist weights, whatever's in that athlete's program that we see off their assessment that can maybe correct some of those flaws into our warm-up, or really strengthen some of the areas that we see that need to be strengthened, and allow us to really prepare ourselves to throw our absolute hardest, or to work on whatever it is we need to work on that day. So once our athletes are done prepping their arms with the shoulder tube, the wrist weights, and whatever else we need, we're going to head into our Plyo Care series, assuming, of course, the athlete clears our assessment protocol. And once we get to that, it's a great opportunity for us to not only strengthen the arm, but to condition it as well, and to also really iron out any mechanical patterns we need to improve. What we've seen is a lot of kids have thrown a baseball so many times, it's hard to make a mechanical adjustment with a ball kids are so used to throwing. They sort of lose the awareness of where their body is in space. So we'll give them some overload and underload implements and allow them to kind of experiment in specific drills and specific constraints that can sort of guide them into a better pattern that we want. And what it allows me to do as a coach is to sort of step back and not have to be constantly giving cue after cue after cue and confusing an athlete and sort of giving them this sort of robotic motion. We can sort of give them the tools and the constraints to sort of guide them to where they need to be. And that way the adjustments we're trying to make, the changes stick a little bit quicker, and they tend to stay longer, as opposed to making great progress in one session, and then when they come back in the next time, they have no idea how they did it the last time. We see the changes tend to stick a little bit better when the athletes sort of figure it out on their own, or are sort of guided in the way they need to be guided. And once we finish up with that section, depending on what throwing part or what part of the program they're in, we can do our more high intensity work with pull downs or position-specific throws. We can incorporate the core velocity belt from Lance Wheeler at Core Velocity Belt. We can go into our long toss protocol. We can go into more specific drill work or mound blending work. We can also hop on the Rapsodo. And once we get to that stage, we'll generally break out our Modus sleeve, depending on the athlete and where they're at in their program, and we'll get some baseline data or some testing data on them to see if specific ball weights or specific constraints tend to increase arm speed, decrease arm speed, and we really get a full sense of the athlete is what constraints work best, not only in terms of velocity, but what sort of stress are we putting on the arm, can we monitor their workload better, and all these tools really combine into a great program. And then once our athletes are finished with their throwing program for the day, it's obviously important that we get some recovery work in. It's always posted up on our wall. We've got tons of equipment that we can use. We can get some band work in. We can get some rebounders with the Plyo Care balls. We get some mobility work in. It's really specific on time of the season, time of the year for the athlete, whether they're in season, out of season, and where they need to go and how much time we have to get there. It's really individual to each athlete and what they need to work on. Since most of our guys lift right after they throw, it's a fairly light recovery series, since the way we write our lifting programs does a lot of the work for us. But it incorporates a lot of the breathing work we did at the beginning, trying to get most of our athletes to relax and allow their brain to then signal to their body, hey, we can actually get some recovery in and actually slow down and rebuild tissue, as opposed to staying wired like most athletes are. So that's all we've got. Hope you enjoy the video. And if you have any more questions, feel free to shoot me an email or reach out to us on social media.